You're allowed to admit it. Success did not fix you, but you still want more. Now the names in the space, Mungazzi, Alex Hormozi, everyone you recognize, they figured out this one thing, but they don't teach it. So today I'm actually gonna share this. So the first thing to understand is that you, my friend, have built a prison. That's the bad news. Now because I'm talking to you directly, you don't get a choice of which news I share next. But for you, I'm gonna share the good news. You may have built a prison. And when I say prison, I want you to imagine an actual prison. And that prison is your current business. And because you built it, you are stuck. But the key part here is that that prison has a door. And that door has a key. And that's the good news. You have the key to your own prison. But there's even better news. The door's not even locked. And all you have to do is pull that door. Not push, not grind, not add more friction. Just pull that door. And that is a metaphor, by the way. And when I say stuck, I'm not saying this from a place of you need to change, you must change necessarily, because you are a hero. You have already succeeded. This video is for the entrepreneurs that have already made it. They have felt successful, they know they're successful, but they still want more. And if you still want more and you are dissatisfied, that's great. And you want progress. In fact, you're hungry for progress. You must first accept that you are in a prison. And in that prison, you can either push or pull, flow or friction. The next level doesn't come from pushing. And you're probably good at pushing. I was really good at pushing. And you may think that more discipline, more willpower, more grinding, more friction is what's gonna get you to the next level. Now, from my experience, that is not true. At a certain level, more pushing is counterintuitive. Now let me explain, and I'm gonna use the example of the hero's journey. And in this story, you are the hero. You are already successful. Whether you've grown your business to 30K, 50K, 100K a month, even $1 million a month, you have to be honest here and agree that you set out with an intention and a goal, and you succeeded and achieved that goal. But you obviously want more and you want progress, but you are the hero. Now that is the first character in the story. And then the next character in the story is the guide. But the key one, which most entrepreneurs or anyone talking about transformation and change gets wrong, is that there's also a superhero. Now this is not Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. You've already embarked on the hero's journey and you've gone through that cycle. And you can choose to go on another cycle, or you can choose to start this new story. And in this new story, you are the hero, you have a superhero, and then there is a guide. And there's also a villain. And the key part to understand here about the villain is that the villain is you, the current hero. And that is the example of an identity change. Because your current level, your current identity, which is you, the hero, wants to break through to the next level. And that next level is you, the superhero. And the reason that I say you is because it is already within you. And what I mean by that is I want you to imagine a superhero. Look, you can imagine Batman or Superman or Spider-Man or Iron Man, or maybe you imagine your dad. Maybe your dad growing up was your hero. Or maybe there's someone in the space that you put on a pedestal and they are your superhero. But either way, I want to get this abundantly clear. Nobody in life can show you anything that you don't have from within. All they're doing is reflecting back, and they're a mirror. So in this story, there's a hero, the superhero, and then there's a guide. And the hero, which is you, can become the villain because you can become trapped in your own success. And when I say trapped in your own success, I'll just walk you through a story, and then I'm going to begin to share some of my story. The first thing is that once you become successful in whatever capacity, you're going to get all the approval and validation that you ever wanted and desired. And you get a lot of yeses, and you get a lot of great feedback. But there comes a point, and I call that point the void, and that is the gap. And in that gap, just here, you have a choice. How do you want to fill that gap? Most entrepreneurs want to fill the gap with more money. They think that that gap there can be solved through money. Some of them think it can be solved through status. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to earn more money if you go through this framework, but that gap, from my experience, is not solved through more money. It's not solved through more status. It is solved through more meaning, more freedom, more purpose, and more fulfillment. So your hero, you can become the villain, or you can become the superhero. And you have both within you. And it's a simple choice here. Do you feed the villain or do you feed the superhero? And the fastest way I've found to do that is through identity change. So that's point one. If you've never come across any of my content, you're probably thinking, who the hell are you? Like, how do you know that I've built a prison and there's a key and the door's open and all I need to do is pull? Well, let me share a little story. And in sharing this story, I'm going to illustrate a key point. Take someone that you think's at the top. Now, you're probably going to think of someone like Alex Hormozi or Mongadzi. Now, I'm going to take him on and I'm going to briefly share a tweet that he once posted. Whatever version of the mountaintop and success that you feel like you want to arrive at, and that's there, once you arrive at it, you're going to realize that there's a new mountain. There's more mountains. The great part about a mountain is once you ascend up, there's another mountain. All it is more mountains, more mountains, more mountains, more mountains. And you may absolutely succeed in one domain and then you want to go deeper into that domain, or you may switch to another domain. But there is always another mountain because you care about progress. However, with the void, there's an issue. You can feel successful, but unfulfilled. And that is not solved by necessarily more success from the same place that it was created. And this is one of the most common traps I see with the entrepreneurs in the business, is they get very successful financially, especially at building this certain business. But then when they look to grow and scale that business, they run into issues. Now, I'm not saying that when you begin to implement systems and you grow and scale your business, that isn't the core issue. But what I've found is that these are symptoms, and there's always one underlying cause. And a big part of that underlying cause is that there's not really a deep why and a deep purpose no more for a lot of these people that are successful, because you no longer need to solve your immediate needs and you're still so focused on the self. But if I take the Amon tweet, key part here, and I want to use this as a story and an illustration. This is not a commentary on him. I know him personally. I was in his quantum mastermind, sat with a guy for dinner. Like I know his story pretty well. My intention of using him is just because him and then Hormozi are like for some reason, like the two people that everyone thinks of in this space, and they're both held up high in regard. It's so easy to project outwards and to look at someone that you think's at the top, and then you're here. And the key part is at some point you were here and you looked up at your version of success, and then now you're here and you're doing the same thing, which is just looking up. And that is great because that is the character of the guide. You're looking for a guide, you feel called to do more for more progress. But what I want to teach you is that when you're here and you're the hero and you're looking up for the guide, which is great, you also have the superhero. And that is the identity change. And it's the fastest way to change your identity. Now, you don't have to believe me, but let me just share a key part of identity change. I'm going to use my personal story. One thing about me, which is kind of odd, just weird, it's not really common in a lot of the online content, is that I started my business really late. And because I started my business really late, I had a ton of experience prior to starting my business. But the main reason I grew my business quick and it was a lot simpler and easier for me than it is for others is because I'd figured out how to change my identity. Because from the age of 13, I had to move to a school. And when I moved to a school, I had to change my identity. Then, like everyone, I went to university, well, most people. And then when I left university, I started and I got a job in career. And then once I moved through the career, at a certain point, I went from job to business owner. But one thing which is somewhat unique about me is that as I went through this process, I made a lot of identity changes, and I'll be honest, like I didn't really care about having a business until maybe like 7-8 years ago, and I've had my business now for like 5 years. When I consciously decided that I needed to change and start my business, I went from job to business owner. But in that period, just before I went from job to business owner, I was also dealing with a problem, and that problem was addiction. Now, when I say addiction, I want to make it clear. From when I quit alcohol to now has been 5 years, but I was operating from a place of having a problem with alcohol. And I quit alcohol, and I didn't do it like the most traditional way. I didn't go to AA meetings. I didn't find a sponsor. I didn't take a course on how to quit alcohol. I knew that for me to truly quit alcohol, I had to operate from that identity. Not towards that identity, but from that identity. And what happened was, I woke up one day after my sister's wedding. I was staying in this fancy hotel, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I finally said to myself, this is it. Like, no more. I quit. I'm now sober. I didn't say I'm gonna be sober, or maybe I'll be sober, or maybe I'll figure it out. I took the full commitment and all the identity change process which I've learned, and I'm gonna share this with you, and I just committed. Now, I say just as if it's that simple, but I do see it as a switch, because you make one decision and then that compounds and compounds and compounds. And I've spoken to people over the past 5 years about quitting alcohol, and it's not a big part of my story, but one thing I've observed is how many people struggle with it. But when I really dive in, is that they haven't changed their identity, and all they're doing is flip-flopping between their current identity and their aspirational identity, or they're reliving an old version of their identity. But you are an entrepreneur, and because you are an entrepreneur, you want to operate with speed, power, and clarity. And you and I both know that if you want to actually truly change, it requires some form of an identity upgrade. And I see it as an identity upgrade. And if you want to upgrade, you can't half-ass the commitment. You can't just dip your toe in. And this is why most people fail at any transformation, is because they're not fully committed, they don't have a vision, and they don't know how to upgrade their identity. So I'm just gonna leave that there for now, just to let it land. And I'm using the example of the sobriety and the quitting alcohol because most people don't speak about this in the context of the business world. But it's one of the biggest transformations and experiences I ever had. And just to kind of paint the picture and make it even more deeper for you, because if you want to improve any area of your life, you're going to have to change. I think we can both agree on that. The question then becomes, how do you change? How quickly do you change? And in what direction? However, when you change, there is such a compounding effect. When I quit alcohol, and it was like July the 10th maybe, that's how bad it is, I've forgotten when I quit. It's not like a date that I look up on the poster and I'm like, oh, it's been 5 years. But when I quit, from that period then, is what happened. Met my wife, got into amazing shape, went from like fat and overweight to six pack. I started my business. I just experienced massive transformation, like huge, the most transformative year of my life. And everything since then has just compounded. And I was thinking the other day, because a lot of people now ask me about transformation, how did I change? How did I upgrade my identity? Because I've become that's my thing. The key part is the commitment. But the other thing is just understanding the hero, the superhero, and the guide. Because I never did it from a place of, it's like, not me. In the sense where I didn't think it wasn't possible. I knew it was possible. I mean, how can you not know something's possible? All you have to do is just look around at everyone around you that's doing the same thing. But I knew that if I was truly gonna change, I couldn't think, feel, and act as the same person who was drinking alcohol. But I did switch my identity. And as soon as you make an identity change and you actually understand the process, it is quite a simple framework. So if the superhero is already inside you, you're probably asking now, well, how do I actually change? And this is what most people get wrong. It is already inside you. And because it's already inside you, it's all about going in and having the internal processing before you look outward. Because if it's already inside you, then you want to look outside into the environment to reflect back and mirror, but the potentiality exists within. And traditional thinking follows a gym, and let me explain. So what I've observed is most people look to change and upgrade their identity, and they see it as progressive overload. And if I'm assuming you're familiar with progressive overload, I'm sure you've gone into a gym or heard about this stuff online. Like, you go into the gym and let's say you want to do a deadlift. You started lifting the bar, and that's what, like, whatever how many pounds it is in the UK, it's 60 kilograms, right? And you start there and you just slowly, progressively overload. So you add a bit of weight each workout, or you increase the amount of reps, or you increase the amount of sets. And then you slowly work your way up to finally pulling 500 pounds. And that's like your standard. You're like, this is when I know I've made it. Like, this is my goal. This is what I want to do. Like, everyone says that this is the thing to do. So then you finally get to 500 pounds. And that may take you years, maybe months, but normally years, right? And you finally get there and you look at all the time it's taken you. That's how most people change their identity. And that's if you even get to pull the 500 pounds. Most people get injured, most people change. They go from powerlifting to now they're into bodybuilding, and then they're into CrossFit, and then they're into high rocks, or insert whatever you're into, maybe it's paddle. So either way, it takes a lot of time. And normally it's a lot of pain and suffering, especially suffering, because of how long the process is. Now, identity change, thankfully, is not like the gym and progressive overload. Most people think you have to progressively overload, so you just do it slowly, slowly, slowly. From my experience, that is untrue. What actually happens is what I now call the reverse gym principle. So it's not progressive overload. Instead, imagine you walked into the gym, first day, no warm up, slapped it on the bar, all the weight, 500 pounds, got down, held the bar, and then you just deadlifted. Now, the reason you do that is because when you operate from your identity, not towards your identity, you are operating from the place. And that is what allows you to actually think, feel, and act from that identity. And this is key, and it sounds so simple, but if you want to become anything in life, why would you start from the place that you don't want to be? Now, you need to know where you are, and you need to know where you're going, which is the map, and that's very key. But once you know where you're at and where you're going, in the case of identity, you actually start from the end and you work backwards. And this is a process, it's a system, right? But you don't start from essentially the baseline. And I'll give you a great example, like sobriety. If your goal is to quit alcohol, you don't start with just slowly reducing your drinks. Like, oh, I'm gonna go from 12 beers, and then the next day it's 11, and then it's 10, and then it's 9, and I'm gonna go from getting absolutely hammered on a night out and partying with my friends to just having one little beer with my friends. Because if you truly either have a problem or want to change, that approach takes long, takes a lot of effort and friction, and who's to say you're ever gonna get there? Because you may then convince yourself, and the ego is incredibly effective at convincing, that you actually don't want to change, or actually it's not a massive problem. But when you operate from, which is what I did, by the way, when I committed to quitting alcohol. And just a quick thing, by the way, when it comes to quitting anything like alcohol, key part here is that we obviously model and we look to guides. And not many people know this. I'm obviously new to content, or at least to this YouTube channel. When I started, my friend was Chris Williamson, who now has like Bottom Wisdom, huge, massive podcast. And he'd done 6 months, and he'd just done a year, I think. And he started as a nightclub promoter, and you probably don't know that, but he'd done like 6 months in a year. And I was like, well, I could do 6 months. I could do a year. I did 6 months. And after 6 months, I was like, well, I'm just going to go back to alcohol because I've done the 6 months now. I've got all the benefits. And he did a similar thing at a year. And I forget how much of this he shared. But what I found was that this process is a little bit like when you're on a road and you're driving along on the road, and then you take a break and you get off the road, and you assume that if you then get back on the road that you start where you were. But normally you start back where you started the journey. And that metaphor for quitting alcohol is a little bit like identity upgrade. And this is why we start from the place and we operate from there and we stay there. So we think, feel, and act from our superhero, which is our desired identity, not towards it. And you already know how to do this because you've done it before. Because if you have a successful, profitable business, no matter how much it's growing or scaling, you have a business, right? That you went from normally job to business owner, or you went from university graduate to business owner, or you finished school and then you started a business. So you understand this process, but when you went from one to the other, that is what I call identity death. And this is why most beginner programs take so long and everyone sells them and markets them, because like that process can be so It's full of conflict. There's a lot of like back and forth, second guessing. Like the amount of people I know that tell me they want to start a business, they hate their job, they're thinking about doing it, and they never do, right? And no judgment from me, but you and I are both entrepreneurs, we have a business, so we made that jump. But that is a clear identity shift. And you could spend the rest of your life just trying to figure out why someone doesn't make the change. And the honest answer is because they don't understand how to upgrade their identity. But you do, because you did start your business. You didn't stay in that job you hated. You graduated from university, and rather than go down the career ladder, or go up the career ladder, should I say, you started your business. And now you're maybe a few months in, or a few years in, but normally a few years. And it is successful. It is financially successful. And you want more, but you understand at least part of the identity process. But this is why it then becomes a prison. Because once you are successful in whatever capacity, you then stay stuck because you run up against your ceiling. And this is your ceiling and this is your floor. And because all you did back then was you upgraded your identity, you assume, well, if that worked to get to this stage, all I need to do is just keep going. You imagine like the ceiling's here and all you're doing is just pushing through. But here's the thing to understand. What got you here won't get you there. And you've probably heard that by now. It's pretty trite, it's pretty cliche, but it's true. So to upgrade to the next level, here's what you need to do. And I'm sure you know this, like you intellectually understand it, but there's a key difference between understanding something intellectually and then understanding something with the body and then being able to connect them. And if you think I'm full of shit, well, I've read over 1,000 books. And for a big part of my life, I intellectually understood everything. But I didn't do it. Like I wasn't actually consistent, I wasn't aligned. And that's why the identity upgrade is really a series of one, beliefs, then it's your emotional patterns and baselines, and then it's your actions, and this is what determines your results. And I've seen this pattern over and over in people that try to break through. Even in the customers which I sell with the revenue breakthrough, or in the clients that I work with, normally they've got to a point where they've made progress, they're successful, and when they come to me, they're actually looking to upgrade, but they don't see it as like I'm just gonna change my identity. Normally when I have conversations, and especially with friends, but even clients, they're like, well, I need to fix my funnel, probably need to change my offer, I need to do this, I've got this business coach, I'm going to this mastermind, and a lot of it is all based on the external. And rarely do I ever hear someone, normally when they come to me initially, say, what I need to do is upgrade my identity. I have reflected and realized that the way I think, feel, and act is my old identity, it's my old floor, my old ceiling. But that's what it is. Like, you are your hero right now. And I also want to honor and celebrate you, because I am not looking down on you. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying that you can't continue to be the hero, but you want to be the superhero. You just do. Like, why do people watch superhero films? Like, the main reason is because they see themselves in that superhero. For me, it was Batman, right? And I don't want you to get too weird about this. I'm not like a Batman nerd. I've never watched an Avenger film. But Batman was like that superhero archetype that I projected onto, and I loved the films, right? And I have many other people or places or things or books that I would put within that archetype. But yours might have been your dad. Like, you may have had a great relationship with your dad and he was an example of success in every area, and you wanted to be the man and be like your dad. Or because you've grown up and you're quite young and you spend a lot of time online, you've seen these people online that are just phenomenal people. Like, Aman is a phenomenal person. Like, I respect him deeply, and I've been very blessed to be kind of a customer of his and to be part of the Quantum Mastermind and the consultant. But either way, you see these people, and when you see these people, you may put them up as a superhero. But this is the thing I really care about. Like, this means so much to me to get across to you, which is nobody can give you something which you don't have within. And if you've got some level of success, you've probably had it where someone tells you that you've changed their life, or before you I was broke and now I make 10K a month, or before you I was broke and now I make 100K a month. Now, depending on your ego, you're gonna do normally one or two things. You are gonna take full on ownership for everything, and you're gonna think, I'm the man, I'm the best, that was all me, and I'm amazing, and oh my God, my onboarding funnel and my landing page and my sequence and my program, it's the best. And you're gonna beat your chest like the man you are, and that's the ego. And that is fine, and that serves you, and can probably serve you for so long. The other choice though is to accept that all you did was showed someone something they had within them. Now, I'm not saying that you didn't teach them skills, they didn't gain insights, clarity, wisdom, and actual experience in the business world. But at some point, it's important to recognize that it was always within them. Now, they may have developed it by creating their identity, and that is a key part, and most of these beginner programs at least have a little module on mindset. It's not much, it's surface level. And the thing here is that you have it within you right now to upgrade to your next level of identity. In fact, kind of what I want you to do as you go through this process is look at the people that you serve in your business, whether they're clients or customers, especially if you have like a make money online offer or you're helping people solve something and it's a part of you're here and you want to get to here, is I want you to see yourself as being them. And what I mean is see yourself as the hero starting here, and then the superhero is where you're looking to go to. And obviously then you have the guide. But the key part here is just as when you're helping someone who's at a beginner level, normally they're a victim of themselves, right? Or they're trapped. That's the prison. And a lot of that is either reflected outward and they blame their niche, they blame their market, they blame you maybe, the course creator, the info product owner, or your clients like blame you and they leave your agency. Normally they do one or two things. Either they look outward and blame the external, or they fully internalize it and blame themselves. Neither is the correct approach. However, one of those approaches, in either way, internal or external, is them creating a villain. And the villain serves a purpose in this story. But for you, you are your own villain, potentially, because you can become either a victim of your own success, a prisoner of your own success, or you can start from that place of success and build and compound on it. So as I said, you think, feel, and act from your superhero. That is your new identity, the one that you want. You don't think, feel, and act towards it. And that may be such a new process for you. And you're like, Jordan, I get it. Just show me how to do it. Here's the great news. It's really simple. It doesn't take too much time. And you can do it now. Like, I just want you to get a little taste for this. It's just write down, just jot down a few points. Well, who is my superhero? Like, how would they think? How would they feel? How would they act? What would they look like? And then look at all areas of your life, not just your business. And this is what I get my private clients to do, because you are not just your business. Like, it may feel like it at times, but you are a multi-dimensional human being, multi-dimensional man. Take stock of your business. And then I want you to do a simple practice. And this is a practice that I give all my private clients. Now, I'm obviously not going to give it to you now. And just a quick one here, because there's so many ways to transform, and I'm not here to shit on other people's methods or their transformation tools. And there are really tools, it is tools in a toolbox, but it's not hypnosis, and it's definitely not affirmations, but it's a simple practice. I normally start with a written one, but I want you to write it out. I want you to get really clear on what your next level is. And the easiest way to frame this is perhaps for you to go through and write your hero story up until now. Then you write your superhero story, and then you write your villain story. And you're like, what do you mean I write my villain story? Well, I want you to take the villain in you, potentially, the enemy within, and I want you to map out what your life would look like, what your business would look like if you kept doing the same thing now. And that's your villain story. Then I want you, and we'll get to the guide in a second, just to fully look at that world. And imagine, just have fun with it if you want to have fun with it. I found transformation can be fun, or it can be overly serious, and it's just, there's a lot of heaviness. But if you go and watch a blockbuster superhero film, a lot of fun. It's probably why people love the Avengers. There's a lot of action, there's storylines. Like, the amount of my friends that have said to me, like, oh, you like Batman, like, you have to watch the Avengers. Like, I'm not gonna, but I'm sure they're fun. But have fun with it. But the key part here is that this is the framework and this is the world, but it doesn't have to be overly complex. And I tried to make it complex for a long period of my life. I've spent 18 years doing this stuff, right? And in that time, I've read, over 1,000 books. I've worked with like phenomenal coaches in each different area of transformation, and I'll share them at some point, but right now I like to kind of keep it private. But each time, the thing that hit me was, it can't be this simple. But it is that simple. But the reason that people don't follow it is, one, they believe it can't be that simple, or two, they don't believe it works. Or they're kind of scared that if it's that simple and it works that well, they've been looking for a complex solution to a simple problem, when actually it is a simple solution to a simple problem. Now, key thing here, and I want to really get this across, is that when you operate from your superhero identity, or they don't operate from it, but that is what I call the zigzag. And what I mean here is that when you are operating towards it, if you imagine you're here and you're making a little bit of progress, the reason this is dangerous is because you're not fully in. You're like dipping your toe in. It's like going to the gym, to use the gym analogy again, and you warm up for a deadlift max, but you don't even lift the bar, and you work your way up to your max set. So imagine you can lift, again, 500 pounds, and you do 200 pounds, 250 pounds, 350 pounds, 450 pounds, all for singles or doubles, and then you finally get to your PR and you have to leave the gym. Somebody sets the fire alarm off and you don't get to lift it. That's the process of slowly upgrading your identity. It can take, at best, months, normally years, for some people decades, and for some people they don't do it. Now, you're obviously an ambitious, driven entrepreneur, and I like to think you know it's a case of when, not if. Because if you're watching this video, there's little to no insecurity about your ability to do this, your capacity to do this. I know you know how to do this, you know you can do it. So it is a when, not an if. But even so, if it's a when for you right now, the slow and steady way to upgrade your identity isn't for you. Like, you're just not, why do it? It's the same with growing your business. If someone said to you, hey, I've got a program and you can grow your business, you're like, great, I'm all in. I'm at 100K a month, or I'm at 50K a month, and I want to double my revenue. I want to increase my top line revenue by 30 to 100% in the next 12 months. And they say, great, well, actually, I've been thinking about it, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to slowly increase your revenue by 2% 1 year, then 3, then 4, then 5, and you're, whoa. So for me to get to the 30%, we're looking at a long time. And you're like, why not just shoot for the 100% now, or the 30% now? That's the same thing with identity upgrade. It's amazing to me that everyone online talks about wanting to grow and scale your business, but then they're not willing to grow and scale themselves. It's the exact same process. Exact same process. You operate from, just as when you look to grow and scale your business, you look at the goal, the intention, and the vision, and then you operate from that. Now, I'm not saying that's the only way you can upgrade your identity. I'm not even saying that that's the only way you can grow and scale your business. But most people, once they know the outcome they want and they've got a deep why and they get to the how, that how is step 3. The outcome is step 1 and the why is step 2. But why would you look to grow and scale your business by just doing it slowly? Like, speed, clarity, power. I know you want these things. And one of my clients' favorite phrases that I ever say to them, and I love it personally, so let me tell you, is you can't have Batman level results with Bruce Wayne's internal operating system. Now you might be thinking, hey, what's internal operating system? So I'll keep it simple for now. Your internal operating system is everything internal, from your mind to your body, and it's your thoughts and your identity, it's your beliefs, it's your intentions, it's your emotions, and all of that is what dictates and determines your actions, and those create your results. And it is a 24/7 invisible process. And when I say invisible, what I mean is that it's not the external. Like, you have your internal world and then you have your external world, and the actions are the reflection and the byproduct, and those create your results. those things are obviously external. We can see someone's actions and we can see their results. So if your current identity is a prison, how the hell do you get out? I mean, how do you break out of prison? This is a framework and it's super simple, and I found it worked for all of my transformations, all the identity upgrades I had from when I changed schools and went from like shy, nerdy, not good with girls to popular, super smart, good with girls. When I went from job to creating my business, when I went from addicted, I hate that word, but let's just call it addicted, to sober. Like, it was the same process, the same transformation. There was a hero, a superhero, and then there was a guide. That's it. And there is always a guide, there's a mentor, there's someone to model. Now, I would want that to be me for you, but even if it's not me, even if you only watch this YouTube video, the key thing I want to get across is that without a guide, it's very hard. And obviously I'm going to say that I'm biased, right? I coach entrepreneurs on identity upgrades, transformation. I'm going to think you need a coach. But here's the truth. Your mind can't think outside of itself, or at least it's very, very, very difficult. And because it can't think outside of itself, how the hell are you going to internally transform when there's no reflection back of your progress? And like any good guide, they can see the unseen, or they can see your blind spots, they can see your patterns, and patterns are key because there are patterns in every stage of an operating level. And I don't want to get too into the process and what I do for clients, because a lot of this is, I like names, like I like to give them names, but let's just say there are clear patterns at each stage, and they are so easy to spot once you know that there are patterns. And one of the key patterns to understand when you get to, let's just say like the 100K to $1 million a month, is that you are still tying the success of your business to how much money you make. And you might feel, whoa, what do you mean, like I'm tying the success of my business to how much money I make? Of course I am. Yeah, but you are doing it from the place of how much does this thing make me? And that's mainly the predominant thought and energy behind your business. Rather than doing it from a place of fulfillment or purpose and actually wanting to do it, you're just doing it because you can. And it's like, and this is genuinely, I've got experience with this, when you finally know that you need to stop drinking alcohol, needs a strong word, you want to stop drinking alcohol, right? And when you decide that to when you actually do it, I call that the suffering window, because pain is not optional, but suffering is optional. And most people miss this because you don't have to go through a lot of the suffering, and that's where a guide helps. But the key part here is that when you go through the pain window, however long that isn't optional. And normally the pain is temporary or it's short-lived, but the suffering window can be huge. And that is the most frustrating part of transformation and change, especially when you finally realize and you look back on any part of your journey and you're like, the suffering was optional. I didn't need to suffer. I chose to suffer. So from the 100K to 1 million mark, the main thing that I see, or one of the main things, one of the patterns, is it is like sacrifice-based success, success without fulfillment, profit without purpose, motion without meaning. Like, these are some of the patterns, and obviously I have like fun names for it, but for now, like, trust me when I say that there are patterns, they're clear to see and spot, but it's so simple and easy for someone to reflect it back. And just to make this tangible, like, I went for cigars with one of my friends a few days ago, and he's just started his business, and he's got all that energy and that excitement of, I'm gonna do this, and you know, a lot of like frantic energy. I obviously have walked that path and I'm further along the journey, just as you are, and you can see as clear as day, like even the external stuff, like the business stuff, so simple, right? Like, pick your niche, pick your offer, do your outbound, do your content. Like, the 0 to 10K to you now is so simple. If your business burnt down and you had no choice, you could get to 0 to 10K or even 0 to 50, whatever level you're at. Like, you know how simple it is. It's the same thing when it comes to the upgrade and the transformation of identity. You're gonna look back when you get to 1 million a month or 500K a month, and you're gonna look back at that like old version of yourself and be like, well, how can I see that? Well, obviously you can, that's the benefit of hindsight. But what I want to get across here is that the suffering window is optional. And like I said, there's always a guide. Now, one of the reasons that you need a guide is because the hero can't necessarily see itself become a villain. And actually, Batman's one of the best examples when Bruce Wayne, Batman, the character, essentially sees that he could potentially become the villain and he's not the hero that Gotham needs and all that sort of nerdy stuff. It's the same process. It is so hard for you to look outside yourself and be reflected back. And right now, all I see online is everyone hiring business coaches, and I'm doing business programs and masterminds. And those are great, and I still do them. However, I rarely meet many people that are like, oh yeah, I've got someone that helps me with my mindset. I've got someone that works with me on upgrading my identity, or I've been reading this book and I've been taking this program on identity upgrade. But then when you really dive into like what people do in their spare time, they're reading self-development books, they're listening to podcasts on mindsets, probably like checking out stuff like the recent Tony Robbins free event that everyone's been talking about, and the Alex Hormozi Tony Robbins interview, which was awesome, by the way. One of my mentors asked me the other day if I'd watched it, and it was one of the best examples. I didn't plan to talk about this, but I will. It's one of the best examples of someone, and I'm talking about Alex, and I don't know Alex, by the way, this is not a judgment, just what I saw, and I think Tony reflected it back pretty comprehensively. Was, what do you call it? He had anabolic Alex and then analytical Alex, and you have someone who's fundamentally built this business and life around the fact that suffering is not optional and that suffering is part of success. And little do you know, consciously or subconsciously, you are going to attract that into your life. And the reason I want to mention that is because there's tons of people online that are super good at building businesses and building systems and everything business related. But when you really speak to them, you'll realize that they're unhappy, they're unfulfilled, they don't live with joy, they don't live with purpose. And they're still like years into their business journey. And they always say the same thing, which is, I just want more. I'm not enough. And I may be jovial and joking about this, and it's obviously a serious topic. I don't wish anyone to feel suffering. But one of the key parts is that it is a choice. And I've sat in the past year at some of these masterminds with 6, 7, 8, even 9-figure entrepreneurs, and I'm not saying all of them are like this, but you know, when the talks die down and you're at dinner or you're sharing a cigar, some of them really get a bit more honest about how they truly transformed. And the business stuff is always like a symptom and not a cause. And I want you after this video to watch and actually study some of these people, the people that have truly continued to grow and compound and grow their business, expand their life. They almost always did this type of work. And some of them don't like to talk about it, but I love it and it's what my business is built around. So I'm gonna tell you all the ways that you can transform and different paths and different journeys because I quite clearly love it. But the key part here is when you're at the level that I'm talking about, it's no longer about the hero's journey. It is about the hero's superhero journey. So let's just call it the superhero's journey, because if you clicked on this video, you probably thought, well, how the hell do I become my own superhero? And what does he mean you've already won? And by now, I hope you've gotten a taste. I obviously can't give you the full process right now just in this short video, but if you click the link below, there's a deeper video that actually breaks down this process even more. But the key thing I want to leave you with is that you are the superhero. And it is as simple as pulling that towards you and you start to think, feel and act from it. So if you want to check out more, just click the video below. And as always, take care and I'll see you soon.